Ready?
Good. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Policy Committee meeting on August 25th, 2020. Just to do some, for everybody that's watching us on YouTube, I'll introduce our members that are here. To my far right, we have Ms. Strobel, she's our Administrative Secretary. We have our Superintendent, Mr. John Tyndall. Next to Mr. Tyndall, we have Mr. Charles Murdoch. And then next to Mr. Murdoch, we have Ms. Patricia Simmons, have myself, Mr. William Bowman. Here to my left, we have our Board Attorney, Mr. Burt Duffy, and to his left, we have Mr. Cliff Warren. He's the Assistant Superintendent of Operations for Carleton County School District. At this time, we will start our Policy Committee meeting. Committee members, I'm going to start off by saying I received an email on yesterday from the School Board Association. I'm not sure if you all received it or not, but it's simply a 2020 policy and legislative update. If you did not receive that legislative update from the School Boards Association, I'm going to be sending that legislative update manual to Ms. Strobel, so Ms. Strobel can not only disseminate it to policy committee members, but also to the entire board for us to take the time and read. If you know Ms. Tiffany Richardson, she is the legal analyst or the legal consultant that works for the South Carolina School Board Association. They put together annually a legislative update. Well, not annually, sometimes they do it twice a year. A legislative law update or policy update manual that has all of the policies from the previous time period in it for we to look over, read over, and make sure that we've adopted the ones that we've adopted. Now, the advice that I will say is in this legislative update, it does not have any of the emendations that we have made to any policies to make it adhere to our district. But I'll send that to Ms. Strobel and she can disseminate it to committee members as well as the full board. Today we have about 9 policies that we're going to be going over, or 8 policies that we're going to be going over in a emergency status. And when I say in an emergency status, these policies come from our School Boards Association. They're model policies. They're temporary policies that we're going to be looking over and amending today to, of course, adhere to the needs of our district. And then later on this afternoon, we'll be bringing them before the full board for an emergency cover. And if we can get into it, we also have 2 policies that was brought to the policy committee by Mr. Murdoch. If we have time to look over those policies, it's going to talk about board member compensation as well as, what was the other one, Mr. Murdoch? Oh, consultants. Yeah, board consultants. And then I was just made aware today that Ms. Simmons has brought before the policy committee for us to look at. You're not going to do that one? Okay, so we're going to omit the student. I won't even announce it on the side of safety. For the lack of use of better terms. Okay, board members, we're going to start with face covering. I think it's the first 4 policies I got from the School Board Association about 2 weeks ago. And all of these policies has to do with us making sure our district is ready for the start of the year, as well as to be prepared for COVID-19 and how we are going to address it as a district. So our first policy is policy ADD. And I remind board members or committee members that these are temporary policies. Temporary policies. They're not going to be policies that are going to be in place forever. We hope this don't last forever, but nevertheless, it's going to be enacted, Mr. Tyndall, as long as we need them, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I've been thinking about, and I want the committee members to think about this aspect of it. All of these policies that we've received in the last month or so has to do with how we deal with pandemic situations or emergency situations. And as you know, our policy manual is broken down into policy sections, A, B, C, D, G, J, L, F, so forth and so on. I want policy committee members to think about us taking these policies and creating a policy section in our policy manual that will have all of these policies in it, and we can amend them to adhere to our district, and then we can implement that section of our policy manual as needed on an emergency basis, so forth and so on. But that was just an idea that I had that I thought would be great for our district to think about. So every time we have an emergency situation, we don't have to revisit policies and revisit procedures, so forth and so on. But that's something that I just hope that we would think about, starting or putting in our policy manual. Okay, but to start with our policy committee, we're going to talk about face covering policy ABD. It's a model policy that's given out this year by the School Boards Association. Mr. Murdoch, do you have any suggestions on this policy?
I like the way it's written. I don't see anything in it with, with corrections that we need. I don't have a problem with what's put in it.
All right, Ms. Simmons?
No, I think it's self-explaining. I'm happy with the way it's explained.
Anything, Mr. Tim, you see in this policy that you need to amend?
I think we put our input in here, the things that you see in blue. We've met on these, and these are recommended changes.
Okay. I have a couple of things. Matter of fact, my paper's all red. Well, it ain't red, I wrote it in black. But nevertheless, if you look at the definitions, at first I was kind of concerned about rather a mask has the same protection effect as a face shield. And I looked that up. It's more. I come to find out it has more protection than a mask. Face shield has more protection than a mask has more protection than a face shield.
Wear a face shield, they recommend you wear a face mask.
Along with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as it relates to the definition of face shield, the Department of Education requirements advise against requiring students to wear face shields because they're not demonstrated as being effective. So as I was researching other districts, a number of other districts were looking at not including face shield as an acceptable face covering for the students.
Now this policy actually says that they're both the same.
What it says
Should be omitted.
face shield is a type of
Face mask.
face covering.
Face covering. Yeah.
But in the Department of Education's requirement that mask is covered to be in school, there's language in there that suggests that face shield might be an allowable face covering.
So should we omit that?
That's my opinion.
The section that on the definitions where it says face shields made of flexible plastic that wraps around the wearer's face and extends below his or her chin may also be used as a face covering.
The only thing is some parents are going to feel more comfortable with their kids wearing a face shield. Because, just by seeing some of the parents out, because some parents are very overprotective, and when you see them coming in, depending on the mask that they have, some parents have the little shield that sets on their head, and they prefer having both of them.
Well, if they have it.
So then if we omit as a policy, if they come in with a shield, are we going to not allow them to have it?
If it's omitted, that's right. The shield would not suffice as a face covering. And if you have parents that are saying they feel more comfortable with a face shield, I think you should direct them to the CDC guidelines, where it clearly states that a face shield does not give more protection than a face mask and actually get less.
But I think if they come in with both, I don't think that we should make that determination of how they want to protect their children. And I think that we should allow them, because, I mean, for me personally, like, some of the areas that we go in, we have to wear both. We have to wear the mask and the shield.
I think special needs classroom, not just here, for the students, they probably need the shield and the face mask. I don't want to not to take it off everything have it wrong. I think if we have it, I think if we have where we have it only have to have a face mask as well.
This doesn't address wearing both. This addresses the minimum requirement, which is the face covering. A face shield is over the covering would be in addition and is not addressed by this policy. So that would be addressed at district or school or teacher level in addition to the policy.
So what I think,
In other words, this does not prohibit, this policy does not prohibit you from face shield over a face covering. It will not address face shield at all. It only address the minimum requirement of the face covering.
but I think what Ms. Simmons is saying, you correct me if I'm wrong, Patricia. I don't want parents to think that their student can only wear a face shield.
That's my issue.
You understand what I'm saying? And if I'm right, yeah, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I don't want parents to think that they can only wear a face shield and don't have to wear a face mask. So, should we say,
I mean, if you're going to.
if the face shield is worn, you must wear a mask?
Worn, a mask must be worn with, but then you can't wear the shield without a mask. But, I mean, make it clear. But I just want to make sure that it's not prohibited to wear, if they want to do it, it's within guidelines of the county.
Okay, what if we put at the end of that sentence, along with face covering? So in other words, that would read, a face shield made of, and I wanted to add the word clear flexible plastic. Now, I don't know if the committee wanted to add that, but I think we don't want your students walking around with tinted face shields.
Because if you look at some of the masks that they're wearing, those little thin ones, those are not covering anything, and they need that shield with it. You see what I'm saying? So we just want to make sure that the information that we're putting out there is correct and we're protected into that process.
So you're in favor of wearing a shield as long as you have a mask on,
Correct.
not just a shield by itself.
Correct.
So if we add the language and say face shield made of, y'all find the clear, does clear issue? I think we need to have clear in there.
It clarifies it for a lot of parents, so.
Yeah. Clear flexible plastic. A face shield made of clear flexible plastic that wraps around the wearer's face and extends below his or her chin may also be used as a face covering along with face covering. I don't know how would we say that.
Along with the mask.
How would we say that? May also be used in conjunction with face covering. May also be used in conjunction with or along with face covering. Will that be suffice for what we want to do?
So one, that's the definition section, so you don't want to put regulations in the definition.
Okay.
So that part of the language would not go up there. I would suggest putting that part down at the end of the first paragraph on the students where we do have regulations. And I would suggest a sentence that says students may wear a face shield in addition to, but not in place of, face coverings. Now, if you want to keep the definition in,
We can make that then. Okay.
They also be using the face scrub.
that's all I was saying. If you're gonna keep it, that's exactly what I was saying. If you're gonna keep the definition in, you will need to take out may also be used as a face covering.
Just give it a definition of what you can do.
Correct. For a period at the chin.
Correct. You got that, Ms. Cole? Okay, the next thing, I told you all about the clear word in that section. Staff members, under staff members, that paragraph under staff members, I suggest that, after the word will, staff members will correctly wear a face covering. Because there is a correct and an incorrect way to wear face coverings. And of course,
So, can I address that too?
yes, sir, please. That's what you're here for.
So the way that's addressed is in the I believe in the definitional section of face covering.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken the definition by the School Board Association, and I've added language from other definitions that are out there that are a little bit more comprehensive. So, for instance, in the definition of face covering, a face covering is I will add the word uniform before piece. So a face covering is a uniform piece of fabric, cloth, or other material that fully and securely covers the wearer's nose, mouth, and chin simultaneously without the use of hands. And these are coming from the state's definition and other definitions.
Without the use of hands?
Right, so some people will do this when they see you coming down the hall. And they just hold it. People just hold it. So that flies against the purpose of it. Some people have made arguments that if you don't put fully cover the nose and mouth, some people are actually having thick mesh face shields that do nothing, that go, or face mask, face coverings that go over, but they're fully meshed and therefore open. But they say, well, it goes over my nose and mouth and chin. So that's why we have to add fully covered. People, look, this has to be tight, okay? Because it's subject to being challenged. So it's got to be tight as to exactly what we want and what we require. And I think that was part of what you were talking about, as far as curriculum.
Yes. Because the last thing we want is for, I'm not going to call out any positions. The last thing we want is face masks to not be worn correctly that will do what its intended purpose is.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or like this.
Or like that.
Because I have people coming in and I always say to them in my office, if you want to come in my office, you have to fully cover all
It's like this.
Or like that, especially not like that. Yeah. So you get the gist of what I'm saying. They need to be worn correctly, and that's good. But go ahead, Bert, what you were meant.
That was all I was saying, that in the definition, if we add that language, then that will cover, in the definition, every time we mention face covering, that's the requirement.
So you don't have to keep correcting per
You
definition.
don't have to do it for each section. That's right. That's right.
Okay, now, committee members, do we want to, I jumped ahead a little bit. In that section that says mask requirements, that's just above staff members, that's in blue. I had a little bit of concern about that the last few words of that sentence.
First sentence.
The last few words that says as determined by administration. In mask requirements right above staff members. Face masks will not be so extreme or inappropriate to the school setting as to disrupt the educational process as determined by administration. I've always been kind of leery about conceptual interpretation or relative interpretation. I don't know if we can address that because what Mr. Warren might think is extreme, I might say it's not extreme. So therefore, now we have different. Are we going to leave that to principals to fix in their own buildings or?
Dress code, that's the same word we have for that, so we're trying to be consistent how we.
Well, while you're talking about the dress code, our dress code, on tag on that, our dress code requires solid color shirts, no writing, no anything on
That's
it.
a school approved logo.
Right, what the school is. Our dress code requires solid color pants, right?
Now we have jeans.
Jeans. I'm talking more about the solid color. In other words, there's no writing, no anything. Should we require that for the face coverings so that it will comport with the dress code as well? Or are we going to have face coverings that fly in the face of our dress code?
Well, that's why we had this verbiage thing when we were kind of addressing that, but obviously the discussion we had, because we were worried about the different masks that might come in, and what's gonna be on them.
That's right.
I agree.
I like the solid mask, but we had that discussion, because, you know, if you see, we have some that the department is putting out, the athletic department is selling. In fact, I just bought one. So I think that's a good idea.
And I'm just throwing that out there because, I mean, if we mentioned the dress code and you want to be consistent with what people are saying, you want to be consistent as you can, you know.
Well, we looked at that too, Mr. Duffy, we said we wanted to be consistent with the dress code.
So where would we stick that in there to make sure that we're consistent with our dress code? Because I'm concerned about that as determined by the administration. And I understand what you say, but
I'm saying verbiage.
I know it is. I know it is. And I can't even begin to tell you how sometimes that has been a situation in itself. But
But so many things we need to address in here, I think that's why they did it in the dress code as well, because it kind of gives you a broad statement and leave it up to the discretion of the administrator if it needs to be something that's a disruption to their education process, because at one school it might not be a disruption, but at another it may.
I don't know if we want to have that kind of system.
Well, I can think of, there might be something that is in a particular area of the county that is maybe inappropriate there, it's causing a disruption at that school.
I don't think we want to have that kind of system of inconsistency. It's not, at least not with it.
It needs to be school district wide.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna pull up the dress code policy and then you want that.
You ready? You ready?
Copy.
You can't copy.
You got it? Dress code?
If a person from Bell go to middle school and they got a Bell mask, so that'd be inappropriate to wear that Bell
I
mask.
mean, if it's for the school that they're in, they
No, I'm talking about, once he leave Bell, I'm just using an example, and go to the middle school, or fifth grade, or go to the middle school, and he still got a Bell mask. I mean, we don't know what's going on with that. Could that be
School
appropriate?
approved manufactured logos on them would be okay.
Yeah, but he's talking about
If they have bells specifically on
Right.
them.
when you go to the middle school.
With the middle school.
I think, we had that discussion.
I mean, I'm just saying, from a certain concern, he or she is still a part of the Charleston County School District. And whether he wear a bells or middle school mask, I don't see the difference. But we want to make sure everybody feel that way.
But we had that dilemma with school shirts.
Yeah.
If I go to Northside Elementary School, can I wear a Carlton County High School Cougars shirt? Can my shirt? So I think that's kind of like what you're talking about.
In other words, I think the principals need to have consensus on whether that would be something that they would want. I don't know. I mean, in other words, I don't want a student
Well, I
to
feel
be
like
getting unapproved because of that.
I agree with the solid color concept too, but where do we put it? How do we write that in there?
That goes back to the definition. So if you wanted to add that, that was y'all's choice. A face covering is a, I'm gonna go through it, I'm gonna pull this face covering out. Is, well, it would be part of it, because it just has to be a solid color, period. That's what you're talking about? Yeah. So a face covering is a uniform piece of fabric, cloth, or other material of a solid color that fully ends. You get that, Chris? Material of a solid color. Right, because you have in your dress code, you have your shirts are to be either solid white or fruit solid colors, or even straight in dress code. And bottoms are to be solid khaki black or navy. I know y'all do let jackets, I believe, that standard relax on overcoats for the winter or whatever, I know that. But other than that, you know, the main shirts and khaki pants are solid.
So a mask that color wouldn't be allowed, right?
Correct.
No, sir.
I mean, I'm just,
The one you wear.
yeah, but this one would.
The camouflage.
Under what clothes?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
That's fine.
that
That's
would
fine.
be
It's
allowed.
camouflage, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Hood would be allowable, and everybody else that are wearing it would be allowable, except the one that's.
Except for one I showed.
Well, now, cloth, this is not a cloth. These are disposable.
You got in there?
I mean, we may need to include disposable because
It says acceptable face coverings, maybe that they may be used more expensive.
Right. I thought that was in there.
But I just want to make sure you didn't say ours would be, so I was trying to point that out.
That it would be.
Yours would be fine.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
That's what I was asking, and I said he didn't think that they need to be approved as a solid.
Yeah.
It's a solid color.
Well,
Where people might not have a lot of choices to pick from. I don't know that solid colors, right?
I think that all of them wear white, right? So,
right, yeah, well, it would be solid. Would further the role of that dress code.
Now, I'll tell you, you can't go anywhere and buy 100% cotton black material.
Wouldn't that be kind of said?
No, I'm just saying, if when it comes to limiting colors, it's hard for families who make their masks. You can't find black material anywhere.
And one more issue on solid color, since y'all are considering that, that's going to, since it's in the definition, that's going to fall on staff members too. Either solid color or student. Is that right?
So everybody good with that? Charlie, good with that so far? Just you good? Yes. Okay. The only other thing that I had concerns with.
Put back something, we need to take out now, the take out the not be so very appropriate for reading, need nothing. It's solid, there's
You
nothing.
really don't. You really don't need that if you're doing it solid, you're not going to have an issue, right? With that.
correct.
Right, not an issue of interpretation, so
That's a good point. The only one you need to keep is the one where school approved logos.
okay, the next thing that I have is, well, we took care of that correctly. Do we need to, I know the state provides us with masks for staff members, but they did not provide us with masks for students, am I right?
Yes, they did.
That was a trick question. I just seen y'all were waiting. So do we need to put language in here, that makes that clear? And what I'm talking about is, we're not gonna provide students with masks throughout the entire year, am I right?
No, sir.
If you're gonna provide us
Five.
five masks per student, but you don't have all of them up front. And the hope is that students are gonna have their own masks, we'll have them available if they need them, but
Okay,
five is what I think they're sharing for you to provide.
And we're hoping that when they get on the bus or when they come in person, that they're already masked up.
And we'll have masks to provide for them if they came to the bus that we have. Yeah, they'll be reusable and washable.
So let me ask this, when they come in for their orientation to pick up their supply, will we be giving them like one or two then, or we will not?
I'm not sure the principals were doing that.
They'll have them for the bus,
Right.
after the need when they own the bus, but they will have available in the top.
And we're kind of hoping that the kids will come wearing a mask, so that it prolong us from having to issue a whole lot of masks at one time.
right.
Does the principal have those masks after school? Well, I mean, I would like for them to really consider, like, when they're there, to ask them, just to make sure. I mean, if we have them available, not give, I mean, at least one or two, just to make sure that when they show up, I just don't want them coming in, getting on the bus and getting there and not having the availability there, if we have something for them.
Well, we'll make sure that the principals go ahead and issue those to those students who show up.
Okay.
Now, all of the students, tomorrow is the start of the week.
Yes.
And so they could hand that out just like they're handing out.
Yeah, I
Say
wouldn't want to give
this
them
is a
all.
device or something, okay? We could issue those.
I just don't want to give them all one time, at least one or two, just to make sure that they have that availability when they come, at least when they start for the first day.
Our bus drivers,
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna have a person on the bus with the driver and the passing out, will we? Because the bus driver won't have that. I don't think.
We talked about having someone on the elementary buses in particular,
Mhm.
to make sure that they're there to help enforce and reinforce the need to social distance.
Mhm.
But yes, sir, though, for the elementary buses, we will
Well,
have.
that person could pass out the mask.
Well, that person is probably going to be a person who, if no one shows up, will be giving them one of the masks that we bought for them,
Mhm.
so that they
Yeah.
can be in compliance with the other students on the bus.
And I think that would be something we might want to do versus just pass them out before they come to school. I mean, at least we know when they get on that bus, they'll have them.
And when the parents come, might not be a bad time either.
Okay. Yes.
Issue them to the parents who are coming with these young children,
Mhm.
so that they make sure that they have those. I'm good with that,
Okay.
okay?
All right, so with that being said, in the student section, the last sentence says that the district will provide masks to students. I thought we should add, as provided by the South Carolina Department of Ed, and expects that reusable masks will be washed regularly. Now, let me rationalize that, because we're not going to be giving them masks throughout the whole year. We're going to only give out the mask that's given to us by the Department of Ed, and that's it. Am I correct? Okay, well, if I'm not correct, then scratch that
We
omission.
have to verify that they don't have to give them, but we have a need for them, we're gonna try to.
We're gonna buy them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, well, then forget that.
We're going to encourage them to kind of keep up with theirs and wash them and keep them,
Mhm.
usable. I think the intention is that if they keep up with them, they could keep those for a pretty long time. They don't have to wear one, but one day, one each day of the week, and they can take those and keep them clean. That would be wonderful.
Okay, good. Do Ms. Stroll have to wear a mask in her office when she's in there by herself?
I don't think we want around the social distance, fine.
Now, That's what I wanted to add to that exemption section. The fact that if the teacher is in her classroom by herself, or if someone's in their office by themselves, they don't have to wear their mask. Do you think we need to add that to that exemption section? Staff members, yes. We have that exemption section right there
That's exemption.
for students. So do we need to put that exemption under the staff, or we would be going to the staff member section, if y'all think we needed to do that? Charles, do you think?
I think the staff will should, even get on the description, because you know, they say to take it over, if they are class by themselves, I think they'll, some good.
You think we need to put that language in there, or you think we
I don't
don't really need that?
not just for everyone in the class by themselves, but I mean, that's
I don't think it needs to be.
Okay.
So going back to the students, we actually have in the student semester, we have a prohibition against mask wearing. Any student dress code, they is not. So I'm recommending that at the end of the first paragraph, in the student section, I guess before the patient section, just have it, that we add a sentence that states the face coverings required herein shall be exempt from the prohibition on head coverings set forth in policy hereby seen. Otherwise, we'll have inconsistent policy.
Very good. All right, the last sentence on this page, that first page, where it defines visitors, it currently says visitors include but are not limited to parents, legal guardians. I wish we could define visitors simply as a visitor is anybody who is not an employee of the district. And that's as related to our company house. Anybody who's not an employee of the district is a visitor. Is that applicable even?
Well, if I visit the school,
You as in charge.
yeah, I'm gonna be, regardless of whether I'm on board or not, I'm visiting.
You're a visitor.
Okay. So,
But we're not school district employees.
right, when you visit the school, I mean, unless you go on that capacity of being a board member,
But even at that, you still do.
still visit. Yes, sir. And I think you should wear a mask if you don't. I think.
No, well, that section just defines who a visitor is.
Yeah,
And I just simply think a visitor is anybody who is not an employee of the school district.
that's cool.
Or that school.
No, that's cool.
Or that school. Yes, no, maybe so.
Hold on, hey, this policy reference.
Or KIR.
KIR, pull that up, it may include having
We really have AI, we don't have AI.
We don't have that ready.
KIR has a definition of visitors. That's the business government. That's the business policy.
Policy AI,
So officially, we can take out the dash and the R. And it's kind of administrative policy.
So what y'all, can we do that as defined as visitors? Should we do that?
Maybe Mr. Bowman wants to solve that is just taking out the word non-essential. And just start with
Visitors is another word. Where is
non-essential is the first word in the.
oh, non-essential.
Do we have an essential visitor?
they trying to distinguish, whether we've been corresponding with people with not really able to just come visit us and use to a school, I mean, these people, official school business, I think that's what they're trying to decide for religion. The limit, just people showing up to school, I just use the wrong way, and walk my child to class, and see them, who put their head in, or
So in that case, we can probably get rid of that first sentence and just say visitors are defined as anyone who is not an employee of the school district. You talking about KI? We go with that?
Yeah, we got to move it up.
Not sure.
I know we got to get it done, but we got to move it up.
Hey, that person is giving us authority so we can consider some place people that are living in
So you want to keep that? Maybe just keep that. Okay.
Especially during the time that we're in right now.
Okay. All right. Anything else for this policy?
So are we deleting everything else and just keeping the first sentence, or,
We're gonna add a sentence after the first sentence that says visitors are defined as persons who are not physically employees. And we can keep the example sentence after that, that's fine.
All right. Anything else for that policy? All right. The rest of them are pretty clear cut from my perspective. I don't know about you all, but EBR, maintaining healthy environments. Ms. Murdoch, Ms. Simmons, do you have anything on that policy? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
The blue language under the exemption, the one that y'all added, as exceptions that state other areas where social distancing guidelines can be met and deemed appropriate by school staff. He was talking about individual employees in an office or a room. I don't know what you're talking about here because it's so broad that it could be legal. Is what I'm concerned about. And I'm also concerned about as being appropriate by school staff, but on the same note, Mr. Bowman was concerned before, because you're placing the responsibility back at the school level for that. Is that right?
It actually went from experience that kids in the classroom throughout the day, and might be a time where they're all social distancing and they need to mask and be taken off of many people before giving that break.
I don't think we want that.
That was something she recommended at a certain age, the kids may not have that mask on, and they were at their desk and they were waiting for the kids, and they may allow them to take them off for a few minutes.
Okay.
And I had a local business person here talk to me about that, saying, how are we gonna not do something like that? Because, you know, the business person telling me, I can't wait until I get out of this business to take this off, so I know how much that is. I'm just saying that it came up to me today.
How about as a way to maybe better regulate that, or have the ability to regulate it, other areas where social distancing guidelines can be met and deemed appropriate by district administration. So in other words, you can set a guideline where they can do it, and that can change that we really don't know, right? We're going into it. We've been educated, we think, but we never know till we start, right? So you need to have that flexibility to determine when it's okay to move and when it's not based on what you're seeing. But I think that needs to be at the district level, you know, I mean.
And I agree with that. We really don't want them involved as much as possible.
but if it's a
Don't want to do it, but I
respiratory
think it's when
issue
they're time.
or something of that nature, and they have to come off at a certain time.
That's covered later.
Yeah.
That's a medical, excuse me,
Yeah.
or right above it, actually. Medical exemption.
So administrative,
It's under accommodations, is the medical exemption.
Yeah.
On the next page. So what I would suggest is that we just simply change the as deemed appropriate by district administration, and then that would allow y'all to send out guidelines where you can send them an example of this. You can send your guidelines to office people and say, okay, while you're in your office by yourself, and you can adapt that on the fly without us having to come back repeatedly and address each situation. That makes sense.
All right, for the sake of time, but I'm not sure if we need to do this. We have these policies that we have on an emergency standpoint on our emergency board meeting agenda. Can we continue discussion of these policies during in that emergency board meeting and still pass them now? Because we're not going to get to the rest of these policies in the next 5 minutes.
They're on the agenda for the special board meeting coming up, so we absolutely can.
Yeah, so committee members, what we'll do is, I thought we were going to get through more than one, but face covering, of course, you all know is going to be, it is, and it's going to be a big issue. So, Madam Chair of our school board, I think we'll be sufficient if we finish discussion of the emergency policies during our regular board meeting. I think that's the only thing we can do. Ma'am? Yeah, we're going to end the policy committee meeting now, and then we can discuss the amending of the rest of the emergency policies during the regular or during the emergency board meeting. Because we're going to have to talk about it and discuss it. And then at our next policy committee meeting, that's when we'll take up Mr. Morales. But for the board meeting, we'll finish amending the emergency ones. That's all right? All right. We thank everybody for joining us for our policy committee meeting. Of course, you know we have an emergency or a special board meeting that's going to start at 7. So at this time, we're going to end our policy committee meeting, and during our emergency board meeting, we're going to take up discussion of the rest of our COVID temporary administrative policies, temporary policies. All right, thank you all for watching, and join us at our next policy committee meeting for a time that's going to be set. Thank you.